Hello to my Algebra 2 students. So today we're going to talk about actually sketching the graphs after a transformation has occurred. So on each of these problems, this is the page we're going to use for notes here. This is going to be our parent function over here. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. And again, we're going to graph it after each transformation and give the domain and range. So in number 1, if I have f of x plus 2, this means, hopefully if you think about it, you're translating, which direction you going? I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, so hopefully you think you're going to the left 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these points and I'm going to shift it to the left 2. So this point here was at negative 4, 0, and if I go to the left 2, it's going to be at negative 6, 0. This point over here was at negative 2, negative 3, and if I go to the left 2, we're going to be at negative 4, negative 3. This point here was at 0, 3, so if I go to the left 2, we're going to be at negative 2, 3. This point was at 1, 1, and if I go to the left 2, I'm at negative 1, 1. This point here is at 3, 4, and if I go to the left 2, I'm at 1, 4. And then finally, this point here was at 4, 0, so now we're going to be at 2, 0. And again, I'm going to draw in the segments to connect it. And my domain are my x values. So notice my x values go now, it doesn't keep going. It goes from negative 6 up to positive 2. And then my range, up and down, the lowest value it looks like that I have is negative 3, and it goes up to 4. So we're using interval notation. Okay, so again, we're going to do that for each one. This one here, if it says f of x plus 2, this means we're shifting the original graph, not the latest one, but the original one up 2. So again, if my first point was at negative 4, 0, now it's going to be at negative 4, 2. If the second point was at negative 2, negative 3, we're going to move up 2. Now it's going to be at negative 2, negative 1. This point here was 0, 3, so now it's going to be at 0, 5. This point was at 1, 1. Now it's going to be at 1, 3. This point was at 3, 4. Now we're going to be at 3, 6. And then this point was at 4, 0. So now we're going to be at 4, 2. So again, I'm going to connect my points with segments. My domain did not change from the original one. So again, the farthest left that I go is negative 4. The farthest right I go is positive 4. And then for my y's, the lowest it now is at negative 1. The highest it gets is to be 6. So again, we're just adjusting our graph. So for number 3, we have 2 times f of x. This means it's a vertical stretch of 2 specifically. Vertically affects your y values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double each of my original y values. So I'm going to multiply it by 2. So my original point, again, was at negative 4, 0. The y value is 0. If I double 0, I'm still at 0. So that point is not going to move. My second point was at negative 2, negative 3. The y value is 3, so if I negative 3, so if I double it, I'm going to go down to negative 6. My next point was at 0, 3. If I double the y value of 3, I'm up at positive 6 there. My point was 1, 1. If I double the y value of 1, I'm at 2. Again, my next point is 3, 4. If I double the y value, which is 4, I go up to 8. And then, oops, that should be there. We're going to disregard this one here. And then the next point was at 4, 0. My y value is 0, so that's not going to move. So if you look at my new graph, it should look like it was stretched vertically. So my domain are my x values. It still is from negative 4 to positive 4. My range is my y values. The lowest it gets, it shows as negative 6. The highest it gets is positive 8. Okay, so again, if I continue on to my last 2 here, let me zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole screen. So the next one is f of negative x. This means it's going to reflect across the y-axis. So we're going to flip from left to right. So if my original point up here was negative 4, 0, if I reflect it across the y-axis, it's going to be positive 4, 0. If my point here next was negative 2, negative 3, if I reflect it across the y-axis, it's going to be positive 2, negative 3. My next point is 0, 3. It's on the y-axis, so it's not going to move. My next point was 1, 1. If I reflect it across the y-axis, it's going to be at negative 1, 1. Again, continue on here. My next point is 3, 4. If I reflect it across the y-axis, it's going to be at negative 3, 4. And then my last point was 4, 0. If I reflect it across the y-axis, I'm going to be at negative 4, 0. So again, if I connect my points, there's my graph. It should look like it flipped across the y-axis. So we are going to have my domain. My x values are still running from negative 4 to positive 4. And my range, the lowest it looks like it gets is negative 3, and the highest it gets is positive 4. Okay, so the last one we're going to do, it's got a combination in it. So we are going to, the negative out in front means we're going to reflect across the x-axis, and then the plus 3 means we're going to shift it up 3. Translate it, I guess I should be specific, up 3. Okay, so we're going to do each of the points. So negative 4, 0, if I reflect it across the x-axis, is going to stay at negative 4, 0, and then I'm going to shift it up 3. So here's my first point. My next point is negative 2, negative 3. If I reflect it across the x-axis, it's going to be at negative 2, positive 3, and then I need to go up 3. 1, 2, 3. So again, I'm going to do each point. The next one was at 0, 3. So if I reflect it across the x-axis, we're going to be at 0, negative 3. And then if I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, I'm at the origin. My next point was 1, 1. If I reflect it across the x-axis, I'm going to be at 1, negative 1. And then if I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, I'm right there. Continuing on, my next point was 3, 4. If I reflect it across the x-axis, we're going to be at 3, negative 4. And then shift it up 3, 1, 2, 3, I'm right here. And then last point is 4, 0. If I reflect it across the x-axis, it doesn't move. And then if I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, there's my point. So if I connect my segments, there we go. My domain or my x values still go from negative 4 to positive 4. And my range goes from negative 1 up to 6. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know.